The last thing my husband said to me before our divorce became final was, "I never meant for loving me to cost you your whole life." Daniel stood beside the courthouse elevator with one hand around a paper cup of coffee he had forgotten to drink. 8 years of marriage had ended in 43 minutes. No screaming, no affair dragged into court, no lawyers fighting over houses we did not own. We had already divided the accounts, signed the settlement, and agreed that neither of us wanted to turn disappointment into warfare that almost made it worse. I looked at the man I had loved since I was 20. At 30, Daniel Mercer still had the same dark brown eyes that used to make me miss entire sentences when he spoke. There were lines around them now. I had helped put some of those lines there, so had he. "You didn't make every choice for me," I said. His mouth tightened. "No, but I got comfortable letting you make the ones that benefited me." The elevator doors opened. Neither of us moved. Some part of me had imagined our divorce would come with a clear villain. I wanted a moment I could point to and say, "There, that was when you destroyed us." Instead, our marriage had died by inches. A graduate program I turned down, a move I said I wanted when I didn't, his family business consuming every dinner, my resentment turning into silence, his silence turning toward Claire, a late-night almost kiss he hid from me for months, 1,000 conversations we should have had and didn't. Daniel looked at the envelope in my hand. The final decree would be entered that afternoon. "I'm sorry, Evie." I believed him. That was the cruelest part. "I know." I left before either of us could say something kind enough to make me stay. Rain had started by the time I reached the parking garage. I remember the red glow of brake lights, a delivery truck turning too fast, the sound of metal, then nothing. When I opened my eyes again, somebody was pounding on my dorm room door. "Evie." I stared at the ceiling. White paint. A glow-in-the-dark star. Tessa had stuck above my bed because she thought our room looked depressing. My breath stopped. "Evie, if you're in there, your boyfriend has been downstairs for 10 minutes. I sat up so hard the room tilted. My hands looked wrong. Not injured, young. I grabbed the phone beside my pillow. The case was pale blue, cracked at one corner. I had not owned that phone in 10 years. The date on the screen was October 14th, 2018, 7:11 p.m. I stopped breathing. No, it was impossible. Then the phone buzzed. "Daniel, I'm downstairs. Reservations at 7:45. I brought the ridiculous chocolate thing you like." I stared at his name until the letters blurred. 2 years, that was our anniversary. The night I had spent 10 years remembering for reasons Daniel never knew. Another notification appeared, unknown number. Then a message, "Hi Evelyn, this is Priya from Professor Rao's lab. Professor Rao thinks your freight delay model may solve a real problem. Bell Regional Logistics needs a pilot immediately. Can you come to the Innovation Lab at 8 tonight? Bring your code." My fingers went cold. I knew that message. I knew every word. In my first life, I had sat on this exact bed, wearing this exact green sweater while Daniel waited downstairs. I had read the message 3 times. Professor Nisha Rao was one of the most respected operations researchers at Westbridge University. I had spent months building a route delay model for her optimization class. I had never imagined anyone outside the classroom might care about it. That night someone had cared, and I had deleted the message because Daniel had been waiting, because we had been fighting about how much time I spent in the computer lab, because I loved him, because I was 20 and thought love was proven by choosing the other person whenever 2 things mattered at once. I had told myself there would be other opportunities. There had been, just never that one. 6 months later, another student team entered the university accelerator with a logistics optimization product. 2 years after that, they sold the company. I had watched the announcement from the tiny apartment Daniel and I rented after graduation. I remembered thinking I could have done something like that. Then Daniel came home worried about his father's company, and I closed the article. My phone buzzed again. "Daniel, you alive?" I could see the whole first life waiting behind his name. The engagement ring, our courthouse wedding, the little rental with the broken dishwasher, the nights he rubbed my shoulders while I finished work. The night I turned down graduate school in California because his father had a heart scare. The years Mercer Freight swallowed him. Claire Whitmore, the messages I found, the truth that was both better and worse than what I first imagined, the divorce, the rain, his face outside the courthouse elevator. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking so badly I pressed them against my jeans. A knock came again. Tessa Monroe pushed the door open without waiting. She had purple headphones around her neck and half her hair pinned up with a pencil. "You look like you saw a dead person." I nearly laughed. Maybe I had, maybe I was one. "What year is it?" Tessa blinked. "Okay, that's not funny." "What year?" 2018. My stomach dropped anyway. I looked back at the message. 7:13. In my first life, I had deleted it at 7:17. For minutes, that was all. Tessa leaned over my shoulder. "Ooh, Professor Rao, that sounds serious." I pressed reply. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. A memory flashed through me. Daniel at 28, sitting at our kitchen table after I discovered how many things he had told Claire and hidden from me. "I thought I was protecting you." Another memory, me telling a friend. I gave up California for him. Daniel standing behind me, completely still. Later he asked, "Did you?" I had stared at him. "What? Give it up for me? You needed me here." I asked if you were sure. You knew what I was supposed to say. Even now, I could feel the bitterness in my own voice and the confusion in his. I had spent years saying yes while secretly building a case against everyone who believed me. The thought hurt more the second time I typed, "Yes, I'll be there, send." The message disappeared upward. Nothing dramatic happened, no thunder, no light, no voice telling me my destiny had changed, just a little blue bubble, 7 words. Tessa smiled. "Good, now go tell Romeo he's eating anniversary dinner alone." My chest tightened. I looked at Daniel's message. I couldn't breathe for a second. He was downstairs, 21 years old. He had not hidden anything from me yet. He had not leaned on Claire yet. He had not hurt me in any of the ways I remembered. He was just Daniel, the boy who had sat outside the campus clinic for 4 hours when I had the flu because visitors were not allowed past the front desk. The boy who once took 2 buses across town because I texted that I was scared walking home after a night class. The boy who would become my husband, the man I had just divorced. I grabbed my coat. Tessa called after me. "Lab is the other direction." "I know." Daniel was waiting under the awning outside my residence hall. He looked so young I almost stopped walking. His hair was damp from the rain. He wore the navy jacket I used to steal from him. In one hand was a paper bag from a bakery near campus. When he saw me, his face changed immediately. "There you are." His smile nearly broke me. I had forgotten how easy that smile used to be. He stepped forward. I moved back without meaning to. Daniel noticed, of course he did. His smile faded. "What happened?" "I need to go to the innovation lab." He glanced at his watch. "Right now?" "Yes. Evie, it's our anniversary." "I know. And we have a reservation." "I know." He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "Okay, is this because of yesterday?" "Yesterday I searched through memories. A fight, of course." He had complained that I had missed movie night because I stayed late working on my optimization model. "You said you'd make tonight free," he said. "I got an opportunity." "What opportunity?" "A real company wants to see my model." That surprised him for 1 second. Pride crossed his face, then hurt replaced it. "Tonight?" "Yes." "Can't you do it tomorrow?" "I don't know." "That means you didn't ask." I swallowed. In my first life that exact sentence had been enough. I had been terrified of becoming the girlfriend who always chose work, so I had chosen him again and again until neither of us noticed I was disappearing. "I'm going," I said. Daniel stared at me. Rain tapped against the awning between us. Finally he asked, "Does everything have to be about proving how ambitious you are?" The words hit exactly as I remembered. My throat closed. At 30, I had forgotten the fight began here. Maybe not the marriage, maybe not all of it, but something. Daniel immediately seemed to regret it. "Evie, no. I didn't mean." "You did." I forced myself to look at him. He was not my ex-husband, not yet. "I'm not trying to prove anything. I want to go." His jaw shifted. "What about what we planned? We can have dinner another night." "That's not the point." "No, it isn't." He frowned. I could feel the old instinct screaming at me. Fix it. Make him feel better. Tell him he matters more. I loved him. That was real. But for the first time in either life, I let him be disappointed. "I have to go." Daniel looked down at the bakery bag, then back at me. "Fine." There was anger in his voice and hurt. Neither made him evil. Neither required me to change my answer. I nodded once and walked away. Every step felt wrong. I made it halfway across campus before I started crying. I cried while walking. I cried in the bathroom of the engineering building. Then I washed my face, opened my laptop, and walked into the innovation lab at 7:58. Professor Nisha Rao was waiting beside a whiteboard. She looked exactly as I remembered, small, silver streak through her black hair, reading glasses hanging from a cord around her neck. Next to her stood a broad man in work boots and a wrinkled dress shirt. "Evelyn Hart?" he asked. "Yes. I'm Marcus Bell." He did not shake my hand at first. He pointed at my laptop. "Professor Rao says you built something that can tell me why my trucks keep wasting fuel. It predicts delay clusters and adjusts routing priorities based on warehouse congestion." Marcus stared at me. That sentence cost me 10 seconds of my life. Professor Rao hid a smile. I opened my laptop. "It can reduce empty miles." "Better." For the next hour, Marcus challenged everything: my assumptions, my data, my simulation. He had 312 drivers, 6 distribution sites, old dispatch software, and no patience for academic language. I loved him immediately. At 9:26, he leaned back. "What would you need to test this on live fleet data?" The answer in my first life would have been fear. I'm just a student. I don't know, let me ask someone. This time I thought about every year I had spent wondering what would have happened if I had walked into this room. 2 weeks, I said. Professor Rao looked at me sharply. Marcus laughed. You're either very good or very stupid. Probably both. He held out his hand. 2 weeks. I took it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Daniel, for 1 second I almost reached for it. Then Marcus turned the whiteboard toward me. Show me what you need. I put my phone face down, and for the first time in my life I slept 14 hours in the next 6 days, not each night total. Marcus. Bell gave me a sanitized sample of dispatch data Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, I understood why Bell Regional Logistics was losing money. Routes were planned around distance, but their system barely accounted for loading delays. One warehouse could fall 30 minutes behind and create a chain reaction across an entire region. My original university model had predicted congestion. It did not know what to do about it. That difference became my life. Professor Rao gave me temporary space in the lab. She also gave me the first adult warning of my second life. Do not confuse remembering regret with possessing foresight. I looked up from my laptop. What? She pointed at my screen. You have been behaving all week as if this is your last chance on Earth. My hands froze over the keyboard. Professor Rao had always been difficult to fool. I just really want this. Good, wanting it is useful. Panic is not. She walked away. I stared after her. She had no idea how literal she was being. Daniel texted twice the first day, once the second, then nothing. That hurt more than I expected. I had spent years after our marriage failed wishing I could go back and choose myself. Apparently, I had never imagined how lonely choosing myself might feel at first. On Thursday night, my laptop stopped charging. I swore so loudly that a graduate student across the room looked over. I tried another outlet. Nothing. The cable was fine. The charging port had come loose. I stared at it. My entire build environment was. On that machine I had cloud backups, but the lab desktops did not have half the packages I needed configured. Great. I checked the time. 10:41 p.m. Every repair shop was closed. I could rebuild on a lab machine. It would take hours. My phone was in my hand before I realized what I was doing. Daniel had fixed laptops for half our friends in college. He could solder almost anything. I put the phone back down, then picked it up again. This was ridiculous. Asking someone for help was not the same as surrendering my life. I typed, "Are you awake?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Yeah, my laptop charging port is dying. Do you still have that soldering kit? He did not answer for almost a minute. Then where are you? 25 minutes later, Daniel walked into the lab carrying a small toolbox. He did not mention our anniversary. He did not ask why I had barely called. He sat beside me, inspected the port, and said, "You're trying to kill this thing." I'm building character. You're building a fire hazard. I almost smiled. For 40 minutes he worked in silence. I watched his hands. Those hands had worn a wedding ring for 8 years in another life. I had held them across hospital rooms, funerals, family dinners, and eventually a mediator's conference table. Now there was only a thin scar near his thumb from a high school shop accident. You're staring, he said. I looked away. Sorry. He put the screwdriver down. What happened to you? My heart lurched. What do you mean? Since Sunday, I got busy. That isn't what I asked. I said nothing. Daniel rubbed a hand over his face. I'm trying not to push you, but you looked at me Sunday like I was someone you were afraid of. I could not answer that. He waited. When I still said nothing, he turned back to the laptop. 5 minutes later, the charging indicator came on. There. Thank you. Back up everything. I already do. Then back up the backup. He packed his tools. I expected him to ask whether we were still together. Instead, he stopped by the door. You don't have to explain everything. Tonight, I stared at him, but eventually, his expression was tired. Eventually, I need to know whether I'm dating you or chasing you. Then he left. I sat there long after the door closed. That sentence followed me through the next week. So did Marcus Bell. Marcus called at 7 every morning. He sent spreadsheets that looked like crimes against mathematics. He introduced me to his dispatch manager, Luis, who trusted software about as much as he trusted gas station sushi. The first live test failed. Not dramatically, worse. Quietly, the model rerouted 3 drivers to avoid one delayed warehouse and accidentally overloaded another. Luis called me. Your computer just made 6 people hate you. I'll fix it. Good answer. I did. 2 days later, the model reduced idle time on one corridor by 9%, then 12, then 14. The number itself mattered less than what happened next. Drivers started asking why certain routes had changed. Dispatchers started using the recommendations without being reminded. Marcus stopped calling it the student thing. On the final Friday of the pilot, I drove out to Bell's main distribution center. Marcus was standing beside a loading bay with a clipboard. He looked at me. Your thing saved us 180 driver hours this week. I tried not to react too quickly. That's good. That's very good. He handed me a printed report. I want another 90 days. My pulse jumped. As a pilot. Paid? I stared at him. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You know what paid means? Yes. Just checking. Academics get confused. How much? 18,000. I nearly laughed. $18,000 was not a fortune. Later, investors would spend more than that on one legal bill. But at 20 years old, standing beside a warehouse in Joliet, Illinois, that number felt impossible. It was the first money anyone had ever offered me for something I built. Not a salary, not a scholarship, a product. I called Professor Rao first, then Tessa. I did not call Daniel. That bothered me. On Monday, I saw him outside the student union. He was carrying 2 coffees. For one stupid second, my heart thought one was mine. Then a guy from his engineering team took it. Daniel noticed me. We both slowed. Hey, he said. Hey, how did the pilot go? I hesitated. Good. How good? They extended it. His face lit up. Evie, that's amazing. The pride was immediate, no resentment, no sarcasm. I almost told him everything, the contract, the 18,000, how scared I was. Instead I said, thanks. Something in his expression closed. I hated myself a little for causing it, but I was afraid. I had spent my first life opening every door between us until I could not tell where I ended. In this one, I had locked all of them. I did not yet know there was a difference between privacy and walls. The next major turn came through a stranger. Owen Pierce arrived at Professor Rao's lab wearing a Westbridge Entrepreneurship Club hoodie, and the kind of confidence that made you want to check whether he had stolen something. He was 22, a business analytics major, and had apparently heard about the Bell pilot through the University Accelerator office. You're Evelyn Hart. Yes, I'm Owen. I know. You do. You emailed me 4 times. Persistence. Spam. He grinned. I like you already. I don't? That's fine. He pulled a chair over without permission. Professor Rao looked up from across the room. Owen. He immediately stood. Professor. Ask before colonizing other people's furniture. He asked. I reluctantly said yes. Owen opened his laptop. I looked at the Bell Public Fleet data. You don't have my model. I know. Then what did you look at? The market. He turned the screen toward me. Warehouse delays, driver shortages, fuel costs, regional carrier margins, dispatch software vendors. He had built a rough market map in less than 2 days. This is not a class project, he said. I'm aware. No, I mean you're treating it like one. I folded my arms. I have a paying customer. You have one customer paying $18,000. That's more than 0. Absolutely, congratulations. His tone was sincere, which annoyed me. Then he leaned forward. Do you want to freelance this? I looked at him. Or do you want to build a company? The question made the room seem suddenly quieter. In my first life, I had imagined success as something that happened to other people, people who were more prepared, more connected, more certain. This time I knew something they didn't. No one was ever fully prepared. I also knew the cost of waiting for permission. What would you do? I asked. Owen smiled. First, figure out who owns the code. My stomach dropped. He noticed. That's why you need me. I definitely do not need you. Good need is a terrible basis for a partnership. He closed his laptop. But you might want me. After he left, I stared at the Bell contract on my desk. $18,000, one customer, a student-built model, a boyfriend. I was slowly losing a future I no longer understood. For the first time since waking up, I realized something. Changing one decision had not given me a better life. It had given me a different one. I was going to have to build the rest myself. Owen was right about the code. That annoyed me enough to respect him. Westbridge did not automatically own everything students created. But the situation was not simple. I had started the model as coursework. Professor Rao had advised me. Bell's pilot had used university lab space. Professor Rao sent me to the university's technology transfer office for 3 days. I imagined my second life ending because I had accidentally built a company I did not own. It didn't. The university confirmed the original work had been created independently, outside sponsored research, and I had not been employed by the university to build it. Professor Rao signed a statement clarifying her role. The Bell improvements were mine too, subject to the confidentiality terms in the pilot contract. I walked out of the office feeling 10 pounds lighter. Owen was waiting. You owe me coffee. For what? For making you ask the question. I hate you. You'll hate me less when we're incorporated. We are not yet. He was right about that too. Owen could sell. I could explain the product to people who already understood the problem. Owen could make someone who had never thought about warehouse congestion care within 5 minutes. That was a real skill. By November, he had arranged calls with 3 regional carriers. 2 said no, 1 agreed to a demo. We were still not officially partners. That changed after Thanksgiving. Daniel asked me to dinner with his family. The invitation came by text. Mom keeps asking if you're coming Saturday. Dad says he needs someone sane at the table. In my first life I had gone. I remembered the Mercer house, the long dining table, Daniel's mother asking whether I planned to do something more stable after graduation. His father telling stories about the company. Me laughing. Me fitting myself into their world. Without noticing, I typed, "I can't, accelerator applications are due Monday." Daniel called immediately. "You can't take 2 hours. It's more than 2 hours, your parents are 45 minutes away." "Okay, 3.5. I have work." Silence, then he said, "Are you breaking up with me?" The question was so direct I almost dropped the phone. "What? You keep saying you're busy, you don't tell me anything anymore, you barely see me, so I'm asking." "I don't know." That's an answer. "No, it isn't. It feels like one." I sat on the floor beside my bed. Tessa quietly picked up her backpack and left the room. "I'm trying to figure things out. About us. About me." Daniel exhaled. "Those aren't supposed to be separate." The old me would have agreed. The new me said, "They have to be." Another silence, then Daniel said something I had no memory of hearing in my first life. "Okay?" I frowned. "Okay. I don't like it, but okay." Saturday morning I went to the library at 11. Owen texted me that the accelerator mentor wanted revised customer acquisition assumptions at noon. Tessa dragged me out for food at 12:37. I saw Claire Whitmore for the first time in my second life. She was standing in line at the coffee shop, blonde hair twisted into a low knot, gray coat, black boots. I knew the shape of her face before she turned. My entire body reacted before my brain did. Cold hands, fast heartbeat, a sharp pressure behind my ribs. Claire looked over, our eyes met. She smiled politely. I could not move. Tessa followed my stare. "You know her?" "No." Claire took her coffee. A male voice called from behind me. "Claire." "Daniel." I turned. He was walking toward us. Claire's face brightened. "Danny." In my first life I had not known they were childhood acquaintances until years later. Their families had lived in the same town. Claire's father had done legal work for Mercer Freight. They had lost touch in high school. Here it was, the beginning. Daniel hugged her, a brief, normal hug, nothing intimate. My stomach twisted anyway. Daniel stepped back. "What are you doing here?" "Recruiting event, Whitmore Advisory." "You're already recruiting." "I graduate early." "Of course you do." They laughed. I was suddenly back in our first life kitchen. Daniel's phone lighting up at 1:14 am. "Claire, call me when you're awake." The text that was harmless by itself, the 50 before it were not. "Evie." Daniel was looking at me. He had not seen me at first. Claire followed his gaze. Daniel walked over. "This is Evelyn." He hesitated. "My girlfriend." Claire smiled. "I'm Claire." "I know." The words came out before I could stop them. Her smile changed. Daniel frowned. Claire said, "Have we met?" "No." I stood too quickly. "I have to go." Tessa stared at me. "Evie, I'll call you." I made it outside before Daniel caught up. "Stop." I kept walking. "Evie." He stepped in front of me. "What was that?" "Nothing." "That was not nothing." I said, "I have to go." He stared at me for several seconds, then something in his face changed, not anger, recognition. "You looked at her the way you looked at me outside your dorm." My pulse jumped. "Daniel, who do you think we are?" "What?" "You've been acting like I did something to you, but you won't tell me what." He stepped closer, then stopped himself before touching me. "You looked at Claire like she had hurt you." I said nothing. He shook his head. "You've never met her." "I know." "Then what is happening?" I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say, "You marry me, I give too much, you take more than you realize, your father gets sick, the company starts failing, you become terrified, you tell Claire everything because you think telling me will burden me, she loves you, you almost kiss her, you stop, you hide it, I find out months later, by then the almost kiss is not the worst part. The worst part is realizing someone else knows the inside of my husband's life better than I do." But Daniel was 21. He had not done any of it, so instead I whispered, "I'm scared." His face softened. "Of me?" I could not answer. He looked hurt. Then he said very quietly, "Whatever I did, I haven't done it yet." My breath caught. He had no idea how close he was. "I know. Do you?" "I'm trying." Daniel looked away toward the street. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer. "I don't know what you're fighting. I know it's not just school." I wrapped my arms around myself. He continued, "But I can't defend myself against something you won't tell me." "That's fair." He gave a short, surprised laugh. "That might be the first thing you've admitted is fair in 3 weeks. I'm sorry." "For what?" Too many things, none I could explain for shutting you out. He nodded, okay. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. He stepped back. I have to get home. I looked through the coffee shop window. Claire was talking to Tessa. She's just someone I knew when I was a kid, Daniel said. I looked at him. I know. His eyes narrowed again, the wrong answer, but he let it go. That night I lay awake thinking about something I had not considered in my first life. I had spent years asking why Daniel had not chosen differently, why he had not told me the truth sooner, why he had let Claire get close, why he had assumed I would always stay. Now I was doing something similar. I was making decisions about him using information he did not have. I was punishing a 21-year-old boy for the failures of a 30-year-old man. The next morning, I met Daniel outside the engineering building. I don't think I can be the same girlfriend I was. He gave me a tired smile. I noticed. I don't know what that means for us. Neither do I. But I don't want to lie to you. Then don't. I almost laughed at how simple he made it sound. I need my work to matter. It should. And sometimes I'm going to choose it. His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded, okay. I'm not asking permission. I know. It was not a romantic conversation. It was uncomfortable, incomplete. Maybe that was why it mattered. We walked to class together. Daniel did not take my hand. Neither did I. 3 days later, Westbridge accepted my project into the Spring Accelerator. The email arrived at 6:08 am. Owen called 30 seconds later. We're in. You're awake. I've been refreshing. You have a problem. We have a company. We have an accelerator slot. Same thing if you're brave. I laughed. For the first time since I woke up in my old dorm room, the future felt bigger than the past. Then Daniel texted, proud of you, no guilt, no argument, just. For words, I read them twice. For the first time, I wondered if perhaps changing my life did not require erasing him from it. Maybe the real question was harder. Could we become different people before we destroyed each other? By February, Owen had stopped asking whether we were starting a company. He had started referring to our business in meetings as if incorporation were a minor paperwork issue I had forgotten to complete. We need a name, he said. We have a name. Freight Optimization Project. Is not a name. It describes what we do. So does tax department. Nobody wants a t-shirt. Tessa looked up from the user dashboard she was helping me redesign. Northline. Owen and I both turned. She shrugged. You're routing trucks across networks. Northline sounds like a company that owns expensive conference rooms. Owen pointed at her. She gets equity. She is not getting equity for naming it. Tessa grinned. I'll settle for pizza. Northline became real, one document at a time, not glamorous. Bank account, accounting software, customer agreements, insurance quotes, an attorney who billed in 6-minute increments. The accelerator connected us with a startup lawyer named Leah Brooks, who told me in our first meeting, friendship is not governance. Owen nodded like she had quoted scripture. We incorporated as a Delaware C corporation because investors expected it and because Leah patiently explained what that meant: founder stock, vesting, IP assignment, a board, and employee option. Pool we did not yet need but almost certainly would. I learned a new language because I had no intention of ever signing documents I did not understand. That became one of the biggest differences between my lives. In my first life, when Daniel's family business got complicated, I had stepped back. It's his world, I used to say. Then I resented being outside it. This time, if my name was on something, I understood it. The cost was time. Daniel and I survived January barely. February was worse. March broke us. His parents had rented a cabin in Wisconsin for part of the summer and invited me to stay for 2 weeks. Daniel asked me over dinner. I knew the trip we had gone in my first life. There were photos of us kayaking on the lake, a picture of Daniel asleep in a hammock with my feet in his lap, one of the happiest memories of our early relationship. I can't, I said. His fork stopped. The accelerator. Yes, we have to stay through July. For the whole summer. Mostly. He looked down. I knew. That expression, the instinct to fix it, rose immediately. Maybe I could go for 4 days. Maybe I could work remotely. Maybe. I stopped. Daniel noticed. So that's it. It's important. So am I. I know. Do you? The question was quiet. That made it worse. We paid the bill and walked outside. It was warm for March. Students sat on the grass beside the student center. Daniel shoved his hands into his pockets. I feel stupid. You're not. I keep waiting for things to go back to normal. I swallowed. They're not going to. He nodded once. I know. We walked a little farther. Then he stopped. Do you want to be with me? Yes. Do you want this company more? I stared at him. That's not a fair question. Why? Because I shouldn't have to rank my life like that. His face tightened. I'm not asking you to quit. You keep asking whether I will choose you instead. Because lately I always come second. No. That's what it feels like. I turned to face him fully. I'm asking you to stop making my life a competition you have to win. He flinched. I immediately wished I could pull the words back, not because they were entirely wrong, because they were too close to the ugliest truth of our first marriage. Daniel looked away when he spoke, his voice was low. Maybe we need to stop. My chest went hollow. What? This? He gestured between us. Not forever, I don't know, but right now. I could barely hear him over the blood pounding in my ears. He continued. I'm angry all the time. You're waiting for me to become someone you already hate. I don't hate you. Then why do I feel guilty every time I ask to see you? I had no answer. Daniel looked at me. I love you. That was the first time he had said it since I woke up. It hurt more than the breakup. I love you too. His eyes closed for a second. Then maybe we should stop before we make that the reason we hurt each other. In my first life, Daniel and I had held on through every warning sign. We thought staying proved love. This time he let go first. I cried in Tessa's room until 2 in the morning. Tessa did not tell me I was better off. She did not call Daniel a jerk. She handed me tissues and said, "This sucks." Exactly, it sucked. The next day I expected a message, nothing. The day after that one came. I was angry because I was scared. That doesn't make what I said fair. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "I'm sorry too." I did not add anything else. Neither did he. Northline consumed the space Daniel left behind. The accelerator gave us a tiny room with one window and 2 desks that did not match. Owen handled customer calls. I built. Tessa joined part-time after her classes and rebuilt the dashboard so normal humans could use it. By May, Bell Regional converted from pilot to an annual contract. A second carrier signed. Then a third. None were huge. That was good. Huge contracts came with huge expectations. We were still learning. Our first real crisis was not technical, it was ownership. Leah Brooks sat across from Owen and me with a cap table displayed on the screen. You have a product, you have early revenue, you are both committing full-time after graduation. Yes, Owen said. I nodded. Then we need to decide founder equity. Owen and I had avoided the conversation because we were not stupid. We knew numbers could destroy friendships. He wanted 40%, I thought 25 was fair. We argued for 2 weeks. He had built sales, customer relationships, pricing, and a financial model. I had created the original product, written most of the code, landed Bell before he joined, and would remain CEO. Eventually we settled on 55% for me, 30% for Owen, and 15% reserved for future employee options. Leah required both founder grants to vest over 4 years, with a 1-year cliff, crediting some prior service. Owen hated vesting. So if I leave, I lose stock. You keep what has vested. Leah explained. I'm a founder. Founders quit, founders fight. Founders die. Paperwork exists because humans are unreliable. I liked her more every meeting. We signed IP assignment agreements. We made our 83B elections on time. I mailed mine with tracking and kept 3 copies because Leah frightened me into lifelong compliance. By June, Northline existed not as an idea, a legal entity, a bank account, contracts, obligations, people depending on me. One Friday evening, after everyone left, I sat alone in our tiny office. I opened social media. That was a mistake. Daniel was at the lake cabin. His mother had posted a photo. Daniel stood on the dock beside his younger sister, holding a fishing rod. He looked happy, not destroyed, not begging me to come back, just living in my first life. I had once assumed that if our relationship ended, one of us had to be devastated enough to prove the love mattered. At 20 again, I saw how childish that was. Love could matter and still end. A notification appeared, an email, not Daniel, a venture investor from Chicago. Owen had sent our deck. She wanted a meeting. The subject line read, Northline seed discussion. I stared at it, then laughed out loud. My heart was broken. My company might be real. Both things could exist at once. That summer taught me the most dangerous lesson of my second life. I could survive losing Daniel. The problem was that survival felt so powerful I began to believe I should never need anyone again. Our first investor meeting lasted 27 minutes. For 20 of those minutes, I was certain we were failing. The partner, Rachel Kim, interrupted constantly. How many paying customers? 3. Annual recurring revenue? 142,000 contracted. Gross margin? Still unstable because implementation is too manual. Then you do not have software margins? Not yet. Churn? Too early. Sales cycle? 40 to 80 days. Why are you the CEO? That one stopped me. Owen shifted beside me. Rachel waited. I could have said because I founded it. I could have said because I built the product. Instead I said, because I understand the problem well enough to know what we shouldn't build. And I'm learning the parts one don't know. Rachel studied me. Better answer. We did not get a term sheet. We got another meeting, then another. The seed round took 4 months. That period stripped away every romantic idea I had about startups. People did not hand you millions because your demo looked impressive. They asked why customers would not replace you. They asked what happened if fuel prices fell. They asked whether a large logistics software company could copy our features. They asked how much cash we burned. They asked who could fire me. That last question used to irritate me. Eventually, I understood why it mattered. A company was not a personal kingdom. Northline raised $1.4 million in our seed financing shortly after graduation. The round diluted everyone. I stared at the new cap table longer than necessary. My percentage was smaller. The company was worth more. Both were true. Professor Rao hugged me after commencement. You look unhappy. I'm terrified. Good, I laughed. Why is everyone I respect so emotionally unhelpful? Because fear is appropriate. You now have employees. She squeezed my shoulder. Just do not worship it. Daniel was at graduation too. Of course he was. Different department, different ceremony time, same campus. I saw him from across the lawn afterward. His mother spotted me first. Evie, I almost ran. Instead I smiled. Mrs. Mercer hugged me so warmly my throat tightened. We've missed you. Daniel walked over more slowly. He wore his graduation gown open over a white shirt. For a second, neither of us knew how to behave. Congratulations, he said. You too? I heard about the funding. I looked at him. How? Owen talks to everyone. That sounds right. Daniel smiled. I'm proud of you. The word still mattered. That irritated me. What are you doing after graduation? Mercer Freight. I had known in the first life. He had joined his father immediately. This time, hearing it still scared me. Full-time. Operations rotation first. Sounds good. Yeah. Silence. His mother looked between us and suddenly became very interested in a distant relative. Daniel lowered his voice. I'm not asking for anything. I know. I just wanted to say congratulations. Thank you. He nodded. We parted. That was it. No dramatic reunion. I did not turn around. Neither did he. Northline moved into a small office in Chicago. 8 employees. Then 11. Tessa became our 5th full-time hire after graduating. I gave her the title product designer. She told me it sounded fake. Every title sounds fake until payroll starts. Very CEO of you. I threw a stress ball at her. The seed round gave us time, not safety. We hired 2 engineers, a customer success manager, 1 salesperson. Owen swore was brilliant and I thought talked too much. He closed our largest customer 6 weeks later. I admitted I was wrong. Owen enjoyed that for months. Our first year ended with $1.3 million in annual recurring revenue. Not enough to make anyone rich, enough to make people pay attention. Daniel stayed at the edge of my life. Occasional messages, happy birthday, congratulations on the customer announcement. Once an email introduction, subject possible Northline customer. A friend of Daniel's uncle ran fleet operations for a food distributor. Daniel wrote 2 sentences. Thought this might be useful. No favor owed. The phrase made me sit back. No favor owed. In my first life, help between us had become invisible. Accounting. His family gave us housing for 6 months. I handled his father's medical appointments. I moved. He covered more bills. I took fewer risks. No one kept formal score. That did not mean we kept no score at all. I forwarded the introduction to Owen. The food distributor became a customer 4 months later. I sent Daniel 1 message. It closed. Thank you. He replied, glad it helped. Nothing else. We were learning a new language too. Distance without punishment, kindness without claim. The bigger problem was inside Northline. Owen wanted speed, always more salespeople, more markets, more features. I wanted evidence, retention, implementation, quality, infrastructure. At first the tension worked. He pulled me forward. I stopped him from driving us off cliffs. Then investors started praising him, not unfairly. Owen had become very good at fundraising. He could walk into a room with bad numbers and explain why they were temporarily bad. I walked into a room with good numbers and explained 6 reasons they might collapse. Do you enjoy frightening people? He asked after one board update. I enjoy accuracy. Investors also enjoy sleeping. They invested in logistics software. That was their first mistake. He laughed. For now, our Series A came 18 months after the seed round, $8 million. The lead investor received a board seat. Professor Rao joined as an independent director several months later after the board formally approved her appointment. I wanted someone who knew me before the company had a valuation. She told me that was a terrible reason to appoint a director. Then she made me explain why she was qualified. Only after I did she accept. Northline crossed $7 million ARR. We hired more than 40 people. My life changed quietly. I stopped checking grocery prices. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Tessa and rented a place with windows that actually closed. I paid off my student loans. I sent my mother money to replace the roof on her house, but I was not rich. Not really. Most of my value existed on paper. My salary was comfortable but controlled by the board. My shares were illiquid. People online sometimes wrote that startup founders were millionaires based on financing valuations. I learned quickly that paper money could not buy groceries unless you sold something. I liked that, it kept the story honest. Then I saw Claire again. Northline was presenting at a Midwest logistics conference. I had just finished a panel when someone said my name, Evelyn. I turned. Claire Whitmore stood behind me with a conference badge. Whitmore Advisory, Director. Restructuring. For 1 second, the old cold reaction returned, then she smiled. We actually have met now. I almost laughed. Yes. I've followed Northline. Hopefully for professional reasons. Her expression shifted. She remembered our strange first meeting too. Mostly. I looked at her badge. Restructuring. That's my life. What kind? Mid-market companies, debt problems, operational turnaround. My stomach tightened. I already knew what was coming, Claire continued. I'm working with Mercer. Freight. The conference noise disappeared. Daniel's company. Yes. Why? She hesitated. That was enough. I knew the next chapter of my first life had arrived. Only this time I was not Daniel's wife. I had no right to demand answers. And for the first time I had no idea whether that was a relief. The first lesson Northline taught me was that success did not solve fear. It gave fear more expensive things to destroy. By our third year we had 73 employees. We had customers in 9 states. We had a real finance department, a real sales organization, an office kitchen that contained 6 kinds of sparkling water for reasons no one could explain. We also had problems large enough to keep me awake. One enterprise customer delayed implementation. Another demanded a feature that would take 6 months to build and threatened not to renew without it. Our new sales team kept promising timelines engineering had never approved. I responded by inserting myself into everything, every roadmap meeting, every large contract, every hiring decision above manager level. At first, people called me detail-oriented. Then Tessa closed my office door one morning and said, "You're becoming impossible." I looked up from my screen. Good morning. I mean it. What happened? 3 product managers are waiting for your approval on things they are already authorized to decide. Then why are they waiting? Because last month you overrode 2 decisions after telling them they had authority. I sat back. That was different. Of course it was. I had reasons. You always have reasons. Her voice was not angry. That made me listen. Tessa crossed her arms. You don't trust people. That's not true. You test them. I stared at her. She continued. You give someone responsibility and then watch to see if they fail. The second they do something differently than you would, you take it back. I'm responsible for the company. You're responsible for building a company that works when you sleep. I wanted to argue. Instead I said, did Owen send you? She looked genuinely offended. No, and that question proves my point. After she left, I sat alone for a long time. The accusation followed me into the board meeting that afternoon. Owen presented our expansion plan, new sales team, 2 additional verticals, aggressive hiring. I questioned every assumption. Afterward, he shut the conference room door. You're doing it again. Doing what? Treating disagreement like betrayal. I asked questions. You interrogated. That is literally part of my job. So is making decisions. I stared at him. Owen exhaled. Evie, I'm on your side. The phrase made something inside me recoil. Daniel used to say that. I stood. Then don't ask me to approve a plan with hiring assumptions that depend on sales cycles we haven't proven. Owen's face hardened. This is not about the plan. It is exactly about the plan. You rebuilt your whole life so nobody could hurt you. I froze. He did not know how true that was. Now nobody can reach you either, he said. I left without answering. That evening, I went to the conference where I had seen Claire. Daniel was there. I did not know until I walked into the hotel bar after the final session. He sat alone at the far end, jacket off, staring into a glass of soda water. 3 years had changed him. Broader shoulders, shorter hair, more tired around the eyes. Still Daniel. He looked up. We both went still. Then he smiled. Hey. I should have left. Instead I sat 2 stools away. He looked at the distance between us. That feels formal. It is a bar. Right? I ordered wine. For several minutes we talked about safe things, work, the conference, his sister moving to Boston, my mother finally replacing her roof. Then I asked, how bad is Mercer Freight? Daniel's expression changed. Claire told you. She said she was working with you. He looked at his drink. Bad. In my first life he had said nothing for months. He had come home late, snapped at small things. Slept badly. I assumed he was falling out of love with me. He thought he was protecting me from the company. Claire became the person who understood the crisis because she was paid to. Then she became more, not a lover, something harder to name, a person Daniel could be frightened in front of. What happened? I asked. Our largest customer moved half their volume in-house. Dad expanded too fast 2 years ago. We have debt tied to equipment that isn't earning enough. Covenant issues. His eyebrows rose. You really did become a CEO. I learned some things. Yes, covenant issues. Default. Not yet. I waited, he continued. Claire's team is negotiating with the lender. We may sell 2 terminals. He rubbed his thumb along the glass. My father thinks that means he failed. What do you think? I think staying alive matters more than pride. That answer was different in my first life. Daniel had fought every asset sale because his father saw it as surrender. The company bled for another year. I studied him. What changed? He gave me a strange look. You did? I frowned. Daniel smiled slightly. When we broke up, I spent a long time thinking you chose a company over me. I didn't. I know that now. He looked toward the window. I was angry because I thought being important to you meant being chosen first every time. My chest tightened, he continued. I did the same thing with Dad. I thought loving him meant protecting everything he built exactly the way he built it. He laughed. Without humor. That turns out to be a good way to lose the whole company. I looked down at my wine. Claire is good. At restructuring. Yes, very. A pause, then he added. That isn't what you were asking. I looked at him. He met my eyes. She's my friend, Evie. In another life, those words would have started a fight. This time I asked, does she know that? Daniel did not answer immediately. Interesting. She knows where I am, he said finally. That's also not what I asked. No. His honesty surprised me. He rubbed his face. She told me last year she used to have a thing for me. My pulse jumped. What did you say? That I wasn't available for that. You're single. I know. Then why? Daniel looked directly at me. Because I wasn't over you. Silence. The bartender placed my wine down and walked away. I stared at the glass. This is a terrible time to tell me that. I didn't plan to. You're dealing with your family company. Yes. I'm running mine. Yes. We were bad together. We became bad together. The distinction hurt. Daniel leaned back. I'm not asking for anything. You keep saying that. Because you keep looking like you're preparing to run. I laughed once. Maybe I am. Then run. The word stunned me. Daniel's expression stayed gentle. I mean it. If being around me makes your life worse, leave. My eyes burned. He looked down. But if you stay for one drink, stay because you want to. So I did. One drink. We talked until midnight. No kiss. No promises. No history rewritten. When I returned to my hotel room, Tessa had sent 6 messages about a customer issue. Owen had sent 3. I answered all of them, then stopped. For once I did not reopen my laptop. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Daniel had told me the truth about Mercer Freight before I had any right to it. In my first life I had been his wife. He had hidden it. That difference frightened me more than I wanted to admit, because if Daniel could change, then maybe I had to examine the version of our past I had used to justify every wall I built. Mercer Freight did not collapse. It almost did. Daniel's father suffered another cardiac event in April and finally stepped away from daily operations. Daniel became acting president at 25 in my first life. That promotion had destroyed whatever remained of our marriage. He worked 16-hour days. I became the person who managed the rest of his life: food, appointments, bills, his mother, his father, our apartment, my job. Then I hated him for accepting the help I insisted on giving. In this life I watched from a distance. Claire's restructuring team negotiated an amended credit agreement. Mercer sold 2 underperforming terminals. They cut routes. They reduced headcount. Nothing about it was triumphant. People lost jobs. Daniel carried that visibly. One evening, 6 months after our conference drink, he called, not texted, called. I stared at his name for 5 rings before answering. Hi. Are you busy? Yes. Can I ask anyway? I smiled despite myself. What? My father is in the hospital. I sat straighter. What happened? Chest pain. They're keeping him overnight. Is he stable? Yes. Daniel exhaled. I don't know why I called. I did. In another life he had called Claire. Not because he loved her more, because he thought I was already carrying too much, because she knew the business, because one late night conversation became 20, then 50, then the place he went first. You're scared, I said. Yeah. I'm sorry. Silence. Then he said, I should go. You don't have to. So we talked for 19 minutes, not until sunrise, not about every secret in his life, just enough. The next afternoon, he sent me a message saying his father was going home. I replied with a heart before I could stop myself, then spent 5 minutes staring at it like I had signed a marriage license. A week later, Claire asked to meet me. That was unexpected. We chose a coffee shop near Northline's office. She arrived early, so did I. We sat across from each other with all the strange history between us that only one of us fully remembered. Claire stirred her coffee. This is uncomfortable. Yes. I considered emailing. That would have been more comfortable. I thought you might ignore it. Probably. She smiled, then her face became serious. I want to tell you something about Daniel. My spine stiffened, Claire noticed. He didn't ask me to. Then why? Because I think you misunderstand me. In what way? She looked out the window. I did like him. I know. Her eyes returned to mine. And I knew he still loved you. That surprised me. I thought maybe that would change. There it was, no villain speech, no denial, Claire continued. He never encouraged me, not directly, but he leaned on me more than he should have. My mouth went dry, the past and present were beginning to overlap. What do you mean? When things got bad with the company, he called me a lot. That's your job. Not all the calls were about work. I gripped my cup, Claire's voice stayed steady. He was afraid, his father was sick, the business was failing, you and he were barely speaking. My heart stumbled, she was talking about the first life. But how? Then I understood, not literally, she was describing what might have happened if Daniel had not learned differently, the pattern was still there. In this life? I asked carefully, Claire frowned at my wording. Recently? What happened? I told him I was not going to become the person he used instead of dealing with whatever was unresolved between you. I stared at her, she gave a small, humorless laugh. Growth? I said nothing, Claire looked at me for several seconds. I also owe you an apology. For what? For wanting him while knowing he wasn't emotionally available. You didn't do anything. I could have. The words hung between us, then she said quietly, and there was a time I would have. My pulse quickened, I heard another Claire, 30 years old, sitting across from me after the divorce filing, telling me I should have sent him home. That conversation had happened. In my first life I had buried it under anger, Claire in front of me continued. When we were younger, I liked the feeling that he trusted me. I told myself it was harmless because nothing physical happened. My hands were cold. Did something almost happen? She looked surprised, then uncomfortable. No. Not in this life, of course. I stood too fast. I need air. Outside I called Daniel. He answered immediately. What happened? Did you almost kiss Claire when we were married? Silence. I closed my eyes. Wrong life, wrong Daniel, he said slowly. What? I almost hung up, then something inside me broke. I need to see you. We met that night at a park near the river. Daniel arrived in 10 minutes. I had spent years refusing to tell him. Now the truth came out badly, not as a clean confession, as fragments: the courthouse, the truck, the dorm room, the date, our marriage, Claire, his father, the messages, the almost kiss. Daniel stood completely still. When I finished, my throat hurt. He did not speak for a long time. Finally he said, "You think you lived another life?" I know I did. He looked at me. I hated the uncertainty in his face, not disbelief exactly, something more careful. You remember being married to me for 8 years? Yes. And divorced? Yes. And his voice caught. I did that to you? You did some of it. He flinched. I kept going because I had spent too many years making silence look like kindness. I did some too. He sat on a bench. I stayed standing. Daniel looked at his hands. What happened with Claire? In that life? Yes. You talked to her constantly during the company crisis. He closed his eyes. You told her things you didn't tell me. She knew about the debt before I did, your father's health, the lender. You called her when you were scared. He swallowed. One night you almost kissed her. Did I? You stopped. His eyes opened. That doesn't make it okay. No. Did I sleep with her? No. Relief crossed his face. I hated that part of me, resented it. He saw. That still hurt you. Yes. Why? Because she knew my husband better than I did. Daniel looked down again. And I hid it. For months. Why? I laughed bitterly. You said you didn't want to burden me. His face changed. He understood immediately. That sounds like me. It does. We sat in silence. Eventually Daniel said, I'm sorry. For something you haven't done. For becoming someone who could. I looked at him. He shook his head. No, that sounds wrong. I don't know what to say. Neither do I. He looked out at the river. I don't know if I believe time can do what you're saying. My chest tightened. But I believe you believe it. I looked away. And I believe the pain is real. That was enough to make me cry, not loudly, just tears I could not stop. Daniel did not touch me. He waited. When I finally sat beside him, he said, I spent years thinking being strong meant not making people worry. I looked at him. That's what I did with Dad, with the company, even with you when we were dating. His voice was quiet. It turns out secrecy just makes someone lonely beside you. I covered my mouth. That sentence reached backward 10 years into our old kitchen. Into every night I had wished he would talk, I cried harder. Daniel moved his hand across the bench, palm up. He did not grab mine, he waited. After a long time I put my hand in his. Nothing was fixed, nothing was forgiven automatically, but for the first time, the two lives inside me stopped feeling completely separate. And for the first time I wondered if the point of coming back had never been to avoid Daniel. Maybe it had been to stop repeating the parts of myself that helped destroy us too. Northline Series B should have been the happiest period of my career. We raised $38 million at a valuation that would have seemed absurd to the 20-year-old version of me. We crossed 200 employees, large national carriers signed, a major retailer selected Atlas for a multi-region rollout, business magazines started calling. I learned to refuse interviews then too. Customers delayed expansions in the same quarter, one large implementation slipped, our revenue forecast dropped, not catastrophically, enough to scare investors. Owen wanted to restructure leadership before fear became panic. I did not know that until he had already started. The first sign was an email from Leah Brooks. By then she was Northline's outside corporate counsel. Subject: special board meeting materials. Attached were draft agenda items, CEO performance review, management structure, potential appointment of executive leadership advisor. I read the words twice, then again I called Owen. What is this? He went quiet. That told me everything. Owen, we need to talk. No, you need to answer. I've been speaking with the board. I am on the board. With the investor directors. I stood up from my desk. About replacing me. Not replacing. Do not insult both of us. He exhaled. A professional CEO would give us a better chance at the next stage. And you decided to build support. Before discussing it with me, I tried discussing scaling problems with you for a year. That is not the same thing. No, because every time I challenge you, you treat me like I'm trying to steal something. My hand tightened around the phone. Are you? Silence. Then Owen said, this is why we're here. I hung up for 10 minutes. I sat completely still. In my first life, betrayal had entered through a phone too. Different messages, same physical reaction, cold fingers, hot face, a desperate need to know everything immediately. The difference was that Northline had rules. I called Leah. Tell me what I am legally entitled to see. Not help me destroy him. Not can I fire everyone. What can I see? Leah answered carefully. Board materials, relevant correspondence used in the evaluation process, any formal proposal affecting my employment as CEO. As a director I had fiduciary duties too. I could not treat company information as personal ammunition that mattered. Over the next 48 hours the situation became clearer. Owen had shared an internal downside forecast with two investor directors. That was not automatically improper. They were directors and entitled to company information. The problem was what he did next. He sent the forecast to an outside executive recruiter before the board had authorized a CEO search. He also discussed confidential customer risks with a prospective CEO candidate under an NDA that had been arranged informally, without company counsel, not criminal, not movie. Villain sabotage, reckless. More importantly, he had spent weeks building a case before telling me there was a case. Professor Rao called me. I assume you are angry. I'm considering murder. No. That was a joke. Make better jokes. I laughed despite myself. Then she said, do you want to remain CEO? Yes. Why? I stared at the wall. Because it's my company. Wrong answer. I closed my eyes. She waited. Finally I said, because I think I'm still the best person for the job. Prove it. What about Owen? Prove he was wrong by making the company stronger. Punishment is a separate question. I hated wisdom. When I was furious that night, I opened Daniel's contact, closed it, opened it again. For years, I had told myself needing him had been my mistake. Then Owen's sentence came back. Nobody can reach you either. I called. Daniel answered on the second ring. Hey, Owen is trying to remove me as CEO. A pause. Okay. I'm listening. I told him everything, the board, the forecast. The recruiter, the outside candidate, how betrayed I felt, how afraid I was. I expected advice. Daniel asked, do you want comfort, strategy, or silence? I stopped. What? I'm not going to guess. I almost laughed. Strategy. Okay. He switched completely. How many directors? 5. Who? Me, Owen, Professor Rao, 2 investor directors. Can they remove you? Yes. Board can replace the CEO. Can they remove you from the board? Not easily. My director seat is tied to common stock voting. Under the current agreement, unless the required holders change it. Good. He did not pretend to be a corporate lawyer. He did not tell me what was legal. He asked business questions. How bad are the numbers? Recoverable. Would an outside CEO objectively be insane? That annoyed me. No. Then don't fight the idea because it hurts. I closed my eyes. He continued, Fight the process if the process was bad. Fight the decision with evidence if the decision is wrong. What if they choose him? Then you decide whether you stay. Simple, terrifying, you sound like Claire. I'm going to pretend that is a compliment. I laughed, a real laugh, the first in 2 days. The special board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Before it, I did something the first life version of me would not have done. I met Owen, neutral conference room, no lawyers, no shouting. He looked exhausted. You should have told me. I thought you'd shut it down. You were right. He looked surprised. I probably would have. Then what was I supposed to do? Keep arguing. For another year. If necessary. He shook his head. That's not governance. No, secretly recruiting my replacement isn't governance either. He looked away for a moment. I saw the college student who had forced me to think about code ownership, my friend, the person who built Northline beside me. I was trying to save the company. He said. I went still. The sentence, different man, same justification. Daniel, I was trying to protect you. Owen, I was trying to save the company. I felt suddenly tired. People keep using good intentions to explain why I didn't deserve a choice. That's not fair. No. I looked at him. It isn't. Because he had reasons too, and because I had been difficult, controlling, suspicious, I had made disagreement expensive. That did not excuse what he did, but it belonged in the story at the board meeting. I planned to make sure it stayed there. 3 days before the board meeting, my mother called. She almost never called during work hours. Are you sick? I asked. No. Did something happen? Can't I call my daughter? At 11 in the morning on a Wednesday, historically, no. She laughed, then she said, Daniel called me. I closed my eyes. Why? He wanted your old photo albums. What? College. Why? I don't know. I told him he could come look himself. Mom. What? I like him. We divorced. Silence, wrong life. I pinched the bridge of my nose. We broke up. You've been acting 40 since you were 20. Not helpful, she softened. You sound tired. I am. Company. Yes. Do you need me? The question hurt unexpectedly. I had spent my first life being needed. I had spent the second proving I was not. I don't know. That's okay. My mother had never studied psychology. She still managed to win arguments with one sentence. That night, I opened a storage box I had kept through 3 apartments. Inside were college notebooks, printed emails, old accelerator badges, the green sweater from the night I woke up. I had kept it without understanding why. At the bottom was a journal, not from this life. I had started writing again after the divorce process began. The first life journal existed only in my memory now, but I remembered parts, especially one conversation. Daniel had once asked me whether I wanted to move to Indianapolis when Mercer Freight opened a new regional office. I said yes. He asked twice, are you sure? Yes. I had received an interview invitation from a data analytics company in Chicago that same week. I never told him. Years later, during a fight, I screamed, I moved for you. Daniel stared at me. You said you wanted to. What was I supposed to say? The truth. I hated him for that answer. Now 5 years into my second life, I finally heard it. The truth. I had not lied because Daniel forced me. I had lied because I wanted to be easy to love. Then I punished him for believing me. That realization did not erase what he did later. It made the story harder, more honest. The next day, Claire called. I heard about Northline. From Daniel. Industry gossip. Worse. I'm sorry. I almost ended the call. Then I asked, can I ask you something? Sure. If Daniel had been married when you started working with him, would you have crossed a line? Silence. Claire answered slowly. I don't know. I appreciated that more than a clean no. In my early 20s, maybe. Why? Because I was lonely, because I liked being important to people. Her voice became quieter. And because being the woman a man confides in can feel innocent. Right up until it isn't. I closed my eyes. That's what happened. With you. In another version of my life. She did not understand. I did not explain. Claire continued. If he should have been talking to his wife, I should have sent him home. The exact words. My eyes filled. Thank you. For what? For saying it. After the call, I sat in my office and finally let the past become complicated. Daniel had betrayed our marriage emotionally. That remained true. He had hidden the almost kiss. True. Claire had liked being necessary to him. True. I had also turned myself into someone Daniel could never fully know because I thought love required permanent agreement. Also true. No one fact canceled another. That afternoon I met Owen's father, not by coincidence. Owen asked me to. We met at a diner in the suburbs. Thomas Pierce was 63, thin with careful hands. He had once founded a packaging software company. I knew the broad story. It failed. I did not know how. Owen said, you think he betrayed you? Thomas said, he did. Thomas nodded. I figured. That surprised me. He also thinks he saved you. I know. Thomas smiled sadly. He gets that from me. Years earlier, Thomas's company had received an acquisition offer. His investors urged him to sell or bring in experienced management. He refused both. He believed founders who surrendered control were cowards. Then a larger competitor crushed them. Thomas personally guaranteed debt. He should never have guaranteed. The family lost their house. Owen was 16. I taught my son one lesson, Thomas said. Founders hold on too long. He looked down at his coffee. Maybe he learned it too well. I drove back to Chicago thinking about inheritance, not money, fear. Daniel inherited the belief that strength meant carrying problems alone. I inherited the belief that love had to be earned by usefulness. Owen inherited terror of founders who refused to step aside. Claire learned to confuse being trusted with being chosen. None of us had invented ourselves from nothing, but adulthood was the point where explanations stopped being excuses. The morning of the board meeting, I wrote one sentence at the top of my notes: do not win against Owen, protect Northline. That distinction changed everything. Instead of presenting a case for why Owen was disloyal, I presented a plan: customer recovery milestones, hiring controls, a new CFO search, CEO performance metrics for me, a formal board review after 2 quarters, an independent investigation of the unauthorized recruitment process, and information sharing. If I missed the targets, I would support reopening the CEO question. Rachel Kim, now one of our directors, stared at me. You're offering to define the conditions under which we reconsider replacing you? Yes. Why? Because the company should not depend on whether I feel secure. Professor Rao smiled slightly. Owen did not. For the first time, I understood why. He had expected a war, so had I. Instead, I made the decision harder. The board postponed any CEO change pending review. The independent investigation began. Owen remained COO temporarily, but access to certain strategic materials was limited to role requirements during the review. No police, no dramatic security escort, just governance, slow, uncomfortable, real. Afterward, Owen stopped me outside the conference room. You think this proves you're better than me? No. Then what? I looked at him. I think we were both scared. His face changed. I was scared you'd lose the company. I was scared everyone eventually takes choices away. For me? I swallowed. So I made it difficult for anyone to challenge me. Owen said nothing. I was wrong about that. His shoulders loosened slightly. But you were wrong too. I know. That was the first time he admitted it, not enough to repair everything, enough to make the next step possible. That night Daniel came over, not because I needed strategy, because I asked him to. We ate takeout on my living room floor. At one point he said, "You look disappointed." I won. Did you? No. I leaned against the sofa. I think I finally figured out why our marriage failed. Daniel became very still. Our marriage? I had never used the phrase around him since telling him about the other life. Partly, I looked at him. You kept secrets because you thought you were protecting me. He nodded slowly. And I kept secrets about what I wanted because I thought it was protecting us. His eyes filled. I'm sorry. So am I. He reached for my hand. This time I met him halfway. The independent review took 7 weeks. I hated all 7 lawyers interviewed executives. They reviewed company email. They examined who had shared which documents with whom. They compared board authorizations to actual conduct. Owen cooperated. That mattered. The final report was less dramatic than rumor. Owen had not stolen money. He had not fabricated numbers. He had not committed some cinematic corporate crime. He had done something more believable. He had become convinced the company needed a change in leadership, then acted as if certainty gave him authority. He had shared sensitive forecasts outside approved channels. He had approached an executive recruiter and prospective candidate without board authorization. He had also failed to disclose the full scope of those conversations promptly. The board concluded his judgment had been compromised. The question became what to do with him. The investor directors wanted a negotiated exit. Professor Rao agreed. I did too. That surprised Owen. You're not fighting to fire me for cause. We sat with Leah and separate counsel across a conference table. No. You could try. I could. Why not? Because I don't want 3 years of litigation over whether your conduct meets a contract definition when the company needs to move. Owen stared at me. This was the kind of decision my first life self might have misunderstood as weakness. It was not. Northline and Owen negotiated a separation agreement. He resigned as COO. He retained vested shares. Unvested shares were treated under his existing founder agreement. He agreed to transition customer and operational relationships, mutual confidentiality, mutual non-disparagement, subject to legal obligations. No invented non-compete that magically prevented him from working in technology forever. No prison, no public humiliation on his last day. He came into my office. No box of belongings. Most of his life was on a laptop. He stood by the window. I still think I was right about what the company needed. I nodded. Maybe. He looked surprised. I think you were wrong about deciding it without me. Owen gave a small laugh. That sounds like something Professor Rao made you practice. She charged me by emotional damage. He smiled. Then his expression changed. I'm sorry. I had imagined hearing those words for weeks. They did not feel triumphant. I know. I thought you'd never let go. Of the CEO job. Of control. I looked out the window. I almost didn't. Owen nodded. That's what scared me. I know. He left Northline. That afternoon I cried in the bathroom, not because I regretted the decision, because a person could betray you and still have once been your friend. Both things could be true. Tessa found me 10 minutes later. You okay? No. Good. I glared at her. She handed me a paper towel. If you were fine, I'd be worried. I hate emotionally healthy people. No, you hate being told you have emotions. Also true. The next 6 months were the hardest and best Northline ever had. I hired a CFO with public company experience. I promoted 2 leaders instead of managing through them. We simplified pricing. We delayed expansion into Europe despite investor pressure. 1 customer returned, another doubled its contract. Atlas became less impressive in demos and more reliable in real warehouses. That was progress. The board reviewed my CEO performance after 2 quarters. I remained CEO not because I was founder, because the results supported it. Our Series C financing closed the following spring. $120 million, post-money valuation a little above $3.1 billion. When Leah sent me the final cap table, I stared at the number beside my name. My ownership had been diluted through seed, Series S, Series B, option pool increases, and Series C. I no longer owned anything close to 55%. I still owned enough that financial reporters began using a word I did not feel connected to. Billionaire in waiting. I hated it. There are worse insults, Tessa said. I don't have $1 billion. No. I have restricted shares in a private company. Yes. I cannot buy groceries with preferred financing math. Technically, you could buy groceries. That is not my point. She laughed. The more Northline grew, the less I cared about becoming rich. That would have shocked the 20-year-old who replied to Professor Rao. Money mattered. Of course it did. It gave my mother security. It gave me choices. It gave employees options that could change their lives if we succeeded. But the thing I loved most was walking into a warehouse and seeing dispatchers use something that had once existed only on my laptop. Daniel understood that. Maybe because Mercer Freight became a customer. I resisted the idea at first. Conflict of interest, I said. Then don't handle the account. Daniel replied. I don't have procurement run it. They would. Then why are we arguing? History. He smiled. Fair. Mercer Freight ran a competitive evaluation. Northline won, not because of me. In fact, I formally recused myself from pricing discussions and had the relationship documented because I did not want anyone later wondering whether I had given Daniel special terms. When the contract was signed, Daniel texted, no favor owed. I laughed so hard in the office that Tessa came to check on me. Daniel and I had been seeing each other quietly for almost a year by then. Not officially at first. Dinner, coffee, long calls. A weekend in Michigan where we stayed in separate rooms because I panicked at the last minute and he did not make me feel guilty. Eventually, one night outside my apartment, he asked, are we dating? I think so. That sounds enthusiastic. I'm trying. I know. He smiled. Can I kiss you? That question almost made me cry. Not because I needed permission for every romantic moment, because once in another life we had stopped asking each other too many things. Yes. The kiss was gentle, familiar, and not. Afterward, I pressed my forehead against his chest. This is weird. Terrible review. I divorced you. So you keep saying, you almost kissed Claire. Future me sounds exhausting. He was. Daniel pulled back enough to look at me. Do you love him? The question startled me. The other me? No, the other version of me. I thought for a long time. Yes. Daniel nodded. That must be strange. It is. Do you love me? I looked at him. Not the same way. His face fell slightly. I touched his hand. That's a good thing. He understood. The day Northline's board approved beginning formal IPO preparations, Daniel met me downstairs after the meeting. He did not bring champagne. He brought noodles. I laughed. We're potentially going public. And you forget to eat when you're stressed. He handed me the bag. 5 years earlier, I might have interpreted that as proof he knew me better than I knew myself. Now I understood something healthier. He noticed. He offered. I chose whether to accept. I took the noodles, and his hand. Going public involved more lawyers than I had believed existed in America. Auditors, bankers, underwriters, financial printers, accountants. disclosure committees, weeks of reviewing language so precise that a misplaced adjective could trigger an hour-long call. There was no magical moment where someone announced, "Congratulations, you are now worth $1 billion." There was paperwork, so much paperwork. Northline filed confidentially first. We worked through comments, updated financials, prepared roadshow materials. I practiced explaining our company in terms that were confident without becoming promises we could not legally make. Tessa watched one rehearsal. "You sound like a hostage." "I feel like a hostage." Smile. "I am discussing risk factors." Smile responsibly. Daniel stayed mostly outside the process. His father died 4 months before our plan listing. Not suddenly, not peacefully either. There had been another cardiac decline, then weeks of complications. Daniel called me from the hospital on the final night. "I think this is it." I left a meeting, no dramatic exit. I simply told the team my family needed me. That word felt important, family. I sat beside Daniel until morning. His father died just after sunrise. Daniel cried against my shoulder. I held him. In my first life, his father's illness had become one of the forces that pushed us apart. This time, grief did not disappear because we communicated better. It was still ugly. Daniel became quiet. He canceled plans. He snapped at me once over nothing, then apologized. I did not make his grief about me. He did not make my patience an obligation. Several months later, he returned to work with a different understanding of the company. Mercer Freight would never become enormous. Daniel no longer wanted it to. He wanted it stable, profitable, useful, something employees could trust. That seemed like growth too. Northline priced its IPO 5 years and 3 weeks after I answered Professor Rao's message. The final offering price implied an initial market capitalization of about $58 billion. My fully diluted ownership after the offering was approximately 19.2% on paper before taxes and lockups and market movement. My stake was worth a little over $1 billion. A reporter asked me how it felt to become a billionaire at 25. I said, "It feels like my shares have a current market value." Those are not the same sentence. The clip went viral. Tessa told me I sounded unbearable. She was probably right. The morning our shares began trading, I stood inside the exchange with employees, directors, investors, Marcus Bell, Professor Rao, and my mother. Owen was not there. I had invited him. He declined politely. Marcus wore the same type of work boots he had worn when I met him. He looked around at the cameras. "This is ridiculous. You hate attention." "I hate people who think trucks are interesting only when software touches them." "You signed the second contract." I was weak. Professor Rao hugged me. "You did something with it." I knew exactly what she meant. Talent is not a promise, it is a responsibility. When trading opened, the stock rose, then fell, then rose again. Everyone stared at screens as if watching numbers move could change the work already done. I stepped away. My phone showed the date, October 14. I had known. Still seeing it shook me. 5 years. 5 years since the dorm room. 5 years since one message. I opened my old archive. I had kept a screenshot. "Professor Rao thinks your freight delay model may solve a real problem. Can you come to the innovation lab at 8 tonight?" My reply, "Yes, I'll be there." That was the story people wanted. One text made me a billionaire. It sounded clean. It was also false. The message opened a door. I still had to walk through it, then keep walking through failed pilots, fundraising, hiring, losing Daniel, finding him again, Owen, the board, my own fear. A text did not build Northline. Choices did. Hundreds of them, some good, some embarrassing, some expensive. That evening after the celebration, I returned to my hotel room alone. There were flowers everywhere, champagne, gift baskets, messages from people I had not spoken to since high school. I took off my shoes and sat on the floor. Then I called Daniel. "Where are you?" "Hotel lobby." I frowned. "What?" "You invited me. I thought you were coming upstairs. You have approximately 900 people around you." "They left." "Can I come up?" I smiled. "Yes." He arrived carrying no flowers, thank God. "What?" "If you brought flowers, I was throwing you out." "I brought fries. I love you." The words came out casual, automatic, true. We both froze. Daniel looked at me. I had said those words many times in another life, not once in this one. My chest tightened. I meant it. His eyes filled. "I know. You can say it back." "I was giving you a second. You're annoying." "I love you too." We ate fries sitting on the carpet in my billion-dollar company hotel suite. After a while I said, "There's one thing I never told you." Daniel leaned back. "That sentence has a terrible history with us." "The accident." His expression changed. "The first life." "Yes." I told him about the courthouse, his last words, the rain, the truck, everything I remembered. Daniel listened. When I finished, he asked, "Did I know how much you regretted your career?" "Not really." "Did I know you blamed me?" "Eventually." "Did I deserve all of it?" I thought, no. He looked down. "Some." "Yes." He nodded. "Fair." I laughed softly. Then he asked, If you could choose again now, not back then, would you choose me? I looked at the man sitting across from me, not the husband I lost, not the boy outside my dorm, Daniel, 26, grieving his father, running a company he had learned not to worship, a man who had made mistakes in one life and different ones in another. I loved him. That did not mean I wanted our old marriage back, so I told him the truth. Not that marriage. He nodded immediately. I don't want it either. But maybe something new. His mouth curved, slow. Very. Separate closets. Separate companies. Definitely. No assumptions. Ask. Even when the answer might hurt. Daniel held out his hand. Okay. I took it. Outside, financial news channels were discussing Northline's valuation. My face appeared on screens across the country. For years, I thought becoming successful would be the ending. It wasn't. It was simply the first time I had enough distance from survival to decide what I wanted next. A year after Northline went public, the stock price was lower than the day we listed, then higher, then lower again. That was public markets. People who had once called me a genius wrote articles asking whether Northline had peaked. Others predicted we would dominate global logistics. Both groups spoke with confidence. Neither came to our Monday operating meetings. I learned not to build my identity around strangers' certainty. The company remained healthy, not perfect. We missed one quarterly target, hit the next, opened a second headquarters, closed a product line that never worked, promoted people smarter than me. I finally took a vacation without bringing my work laptop. Tessa photographed the moment like evidence. Daniel and I stayed together, slowly, painfully. Normally we fought. That mattered. The first serious fight happened over Christmas. Mercer Freight had a lender meeting the same weekend. Daniel promised to visit my mother. He called 2 days before. I may need to cancel. My entire body reacted. Old life, old pattern, your family, your company, I come second. The words were already forming. Then I stopped. What do you need? I need Saturday morning for the meeting. And after? I can drive down Saturday afternoon. You'll be exhausted. Probably. What do you want to do? He paused. I want to keep the commitment to your mom. I also need to handle the lender. Then comes Saturday night. Are you angry? Yes. Okay. That almost made me laugh. I'm not angry because you have work. What are you angry about? I wanted the full weekend. I know. I need you not to tell me I shouldn't care. I won't. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. No silent treatment, no hidden resentment, no test he did not know he was taking. We arrived at my mother's house. 12 hours later than planned. She fed Daniel enough food to threaten his health. Life continued. Claire moved to New York. She became a partner at a restructuring fund. We were never friends. I liked that. Stories often treated forgiveness as intimacy. It wasn't. Sometimes forgiveness was simply the absence of poison. We saw each other at conferences once or twice a year. We spoke professionally. Once, after a panel, she said, "You look happy." I am. So does he. I nodded. Claire smiled. Good. That was enough. Owen started another company. I learned through an industry article. Small business inventory software. Seed funded, 13 employees. For months we had no contact. Then an email arrived. Subject: no action needed. I almost deleted it. Instead I opened it. Evie, I understand now why being right wasn't enough. I had a board disagreement last month. I was certain I knew what had to happen. I heard myself explaining why I hadn't told my co-founder yet. That was unpleasant. You were right about one thing. If someone deserves to share the consequences, they deserve to share the choice. I'm not asking for forgiveness or friendship. I hope Northline keeps doing well. Owen, I read it twice, then closed it. Tessa asked whether I would respond. No. Why not? I don't need to. She nodded. Healthy. Don't ruin it. Marcus Bell remained a Northline customer. On the 6th anniversary of our first contract, he mailed me a framed copy of the original pilot invoice, $18,000 at the bottom. He had written, "You were 20 and promised me 2 weeks. I thought you were insane." I hung it in my office. Not the IPO photo, not the magazine cover, the invoice, because that was where the real story began. Not wealth, usefulness. Daniel proposed marriage 2 years after the IPO. It was terrible, not emotionally, operationally. He chose a hiking trail near Lake Michigan because we had gone there in college. Then it rained. His shoe got stuck in mud. A dog ran away from another hiker and nearly knocked him over. By the time he pulled out the ring box, both of us were laughing too hard to make the moment elegant. He did not kneel. That surprised me. He held the ring and said, "I don't want to ask you to promise forever like we know what forever looks like." Rain ran down his face. "I want to ask whether you want to keep choosing this with me." I cried immediately. "Your proposal is terrible." I had a speech. The dog ruined it. The dog improved it. I looked at the ring, then at him. In my first life, our engagement had felt inevitable. We had been together since college. Everyone expected marriage. We expected marriage. I had confused momentum with choice. This time there was no momentum. We had broken up, lived separately, built separate lives, lost people, hurt people, learned things. We could walk away. Neither of us needed the other to survive. That made my answer different. Yes. Daniel smiled. Yeah. Yes. He kissed me in the rain. Then we spent 15 minutes looking for the car because we had taken the wrong trail. Our wedding was small. My mother, his mother and sister, Tessa, Professor Rao, Marcus and his wife, a few friends, no business press, no investor spectacle. Claire sent a card. Owen sent nothing. Both felt right. Professor Rao stood beside me before the ceremony. You are nervous. Yes. Good, I laughed. You've been saying that for 8 years. And you continue to require it. She adjusted my sleeve. Do you know why you are doing this? Yes. Then go. Daniel waited at the front. Older than the boy under the dorm awning, younger than the man outside the courthouse elevator in my memory. For 1 second I saw all 3 versions of him. Then only one, the man in front of me. During our vows I did not promise to put him first. He did not promise to protect me from everything. We promised to tell the truth before resentment had time to translate it. We promised to ask rather than assume. Those vows sounded less romantic than forever. I trusted them more. Years later people still asked about the message. Interviews loved it. The text you almost deleted. The text that made you a billionaire. The text that changed everything. I always corrected them. It gave me a meeting. That disappointed reporters. They wanted magic, a single fork in the road, one brave answer. Real life was less satisfying and more useful. The message mattered because I replied. The meeting mattered because I showed up. The pilot mattered because I kept fixing it after it failed. Northline mattered because hundreds of people built it with me. Daniel mattered because we stopped using love as an excuse not to grow. Even the pain mattered, not because suffering automatically makes people better. Sometimes suffering only hurts. But eventually, I stopped demanding that the past become fair before I allowed myself to move on. That was freedom. One autumn afternoon, Daniel and I returned to Westbridge. The campus looked smaller. The old innovation building had been renovated. Our dorms were still there. The restaurant where we were supposed to have our second anniversary dinner was gone. In its place was a coffee shop. Daniel stood outside and stared at the sign. You're kidding. I laughed. What? I thought we could finally finish the date. 8 years late. Technically longer depending on your timeline. I looked at him. You believe me now? He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. I believe something happened to you. That is not an answer. I married a woman who remembers divorcing me in another timeline. I have accepted ambiguity. Coward. He smiled. We went inside. The coffee shop was crowded with students, laptops everywhere. Someone was arguing about venture capital near the window. I almost laughed. We found a small table. Daniel sat across from me. My phone buzzed. I looked down. A message from Daniel. Dinner Friday. I stared at him. You're sitting right there. I know. Why are you texting me? He shrugged. Tradition. I looked at the screen for a moment. I was 20 again. Green sweater, cracked blue phone case. Professor Rao's message. Daniel downstairs. A life dividing in two. For years I thought my second chance had been about choosing the right future, career instead of love, ambition instead of sacrifice, myself instead of Daniel. I had been wrong. There was no single correct choice waiting for me. That was the lesson I had missed in my first life. I did not have to choose myself once. I had to keep choosing myself honestly, and sometimes, because I was honest, I could choose someone else too. I typed yes. Daniel's phone buzzed. He looked at the answer and smiled. I reached across the table. He took my hand. Outside, students hurried past carrying backpacks, coffee, laptops, entire futures they could not yet see. I used to envy people who had no idea what was coming. Now I didn't. Knowing the future had never been my greatest advantage. Knowing regret had. It taught me that love could be real and still be unhealthy. That betrayal could happen without a perfect villain. That good intentions could still cause damage. That apologies did not erase consequences. That forgiveness did not require reunion. And that reconciliation only meant something when both people were free to walk away. In my first life, Daniel and I loved each other and still failed. For a long time, I thought that made the love meaningless. It didn't. It meant love had never been enough by itself. This time we brought more: truth, boundaries, choice, a willingness to disappoint each other without treating disappointment as abandonment. We still got things wrong. We probably always would. Daniel would sometimes hide stress until I asked twice. I would sometimes become controlling when I was afraid. He would apologize too quickly because he hated conflict. I would hold on to arguments longer than necessary because part of me still wanted certainty. We were not healed into perfect people. We were simply more willing to notice what we were doing. That was enough. Northline never made me feel complete. Neither did becoming wealthy, neither did marrying Daniel again. The completeness I had spent years looking for was the wrong goal. A life was not complete. It was lived, built, revised, sometimes damaged, sometimes repaired. There were still things I regretted from the first life. I regretted the years I spent angry without speaking. I regretted the way Daniel learned too late that silence was not protection. I regretted Claire becoming part of a marriage she should have stepped away from. I regretted how long Owen and I allowed fear to disguise itself as certainty. I could not repair that old world. Maybe it still existed somewhere. Maybe another version of me walked out of the courthouse into the rain and simply went home. I hope she did. I hope she learned to forgive herself even without a second chance. Because that was the part no one understood when they heard my story. The miracle was not waking up at 20. The miracle was not the company. It was not the money. It was not even Daniel. The miracle was that I finally stopped treating my life as something that happened after everyone else had finished needing me. I looked at Daniel across the small coffee shop table. What? He smiled. You're staring. I know. Should I be worried? No. Good. He squeezed my hand. I thought about the last thing he had said to me outside the courthouse in my first life. I never meant for loving me to cost you your whole life. For years, I carried those words like an accusation. Eventually, they became something else, a warning. Love should not cost a whole life, not mine, not his, not anyone's. Good love made room for one. Daniel lifted his coffee. So Friday, I smiled, yes. And this time I knew exactly what I meant.